Hey, Rachel, you know my family's in Florida and I'm here in New York, right?
Again, Kevin?
We did it again.
How? How do
Excellent.
you leave the
How
kid
the
behind twice?
yeah. And the contrivances this time are just insane.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here today to talk about Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, not from 1992. So this is the sequel to the hugely successful original movie. There had to be a sequel when it was that successful. So you've got the same team again. Chris Columbus directs, John Hughes writes the script, and you've got the same family back. And that's part of the gag of the movie is then how can it happen twice? A year after like the previous incident as well, but it does with a little bit of a twist this time. And the twist is then Kevin actually doesn't sleep in and is with them on the run to the airport, but they get separated and you get all these different circumstances. Somehow he gets on a plane to New York without a boarding pass.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing. He gets on the wrong plane, goes off to New York, and they go off to Paris. And again, you get the thing of the mother realizing when it's too late. And we'll talk about the scene. It's actually quite a clever scene, like how they realize. But that's once again a thing. They're in Florida, rainy Florida, in this film, which must hardly ever happen. But
Yeah.
and he's in New York, so that's an ironic note. Then it's actually an upgrade for him this time. In the first movie, he enjoyed being home alone for a while, but it was still kind of like whatever. I always live here. Whereas this time, it is actually an upgrade, and I think they play into that the fact that yeah, screw them. They're in Florida. I'm in the more exciting location. I'm in New York. We bring back the crooks, stuff around the toy store at Christmas because the crooks are planning on robbing that. And Kevin forms a bit of an attachment and decides to save the day. And this time he befriends a bird lady who's homeless in the park, played by Brendan Fricker, instead of like it was like the guy from the first movie.
The Marley character from the first
so
one.
So you do get stuff like that where it's just a little bit of a change up, and he's staying at a hotel. You get a bunch of eccentric characters there who lose control of him. So Tim Curry is one of them, and lots of familiar faces in this one. But that's the setup. Rachel, what do you think of Home Alone 2?
I actually really love Home Alone 2, despite the fact that I do spend most of the movie going, how did this happen again? You lose your kid once, okay, we can maybe overlook that. You do it twice, why is no one calling Child Protective Services on the McAllisters? I mean, yeah. But yes, no, I actually really like this one. As I said in our Home Alone review, I actually saw this one first. I saw this, at the cinema with my cousins. I distinctly remember seeing this, and then I saw the first one after. But I actually think that this one improves on the first one, and that it's got like slightly better characterization. I also think the Christmas feel is bigger in this one, which is insane because the first one has a very Christmas feel. But I think for setting it in New York, because like you said, in the first movie, he's home alone, so he's by himself. So yes, there's Christmas decorations and music, but you don't get that, the crowds and everything. Like in New York City, there's people everywhere. There's store Santa Claus. He gets to go to the toy store. It's big. It's beautiful. It looks really Christmassy. I'm going to make a comparison right now that you're probably going to laugh at, but let me explain. So Home Alone 2 is actually kind of like Evil Dead 2. Hear me out.
Okay.
Columbus and Hughes have both said that this movie is kind of a sequel / remake. So similar to Evil Dead 2, which was technically a sequel, but also kind of a slight remake of the first one. That's what this is. And I think it is very obvious that that's the angle they were going for, because all of the story beats in this movie are pretty much the same as the first movie. You still have the family who hate Kevin and Kevin hates them. You still have all the series of events that lead to him being left behind. As we said, you've got the Marley character, only in this one it's the bird lady. So you still have that thing of Kevin seeing someone who he thinks is scary but turns out to not be scary. So again, the beats are very similar, just done slightly differently. And because of this new setting, you have, a bit more of that Christmas feel. This one's a little bit longer than the last one, although you wouldn't know it. Again, I think this one's very well paced. And I think that, like, Kevin's character, because we know him now in this one, he's a little bit less of a snot, and you know that he's grown a little bit. And so, like, I think his character's a lot more fun. And look, Harry and Marv, they're the sticky bandits in this one.
It, yeah.
Yes, the sticky bandits. Once again, they are, like, they're great. This one, you really have to kind of stretch your willing suspension of disbelief to think that, like, how did these two end up in the exact same city at the exact same time in the exact same place as Kevin McAllister? Like, New York's a big city, so you do have a little bit of that you need to stretch the imagination. But I actually think this is really fun. There is a not so fun cameo from Donald Trump in this movie because they filmed at the Plaza Hotel in New York, which he owned at the time, and that was his condition for letting them film at the Plaza. But I did find out that for like quite a long time after Home Alone 2, the Plaza Hotel would offer a Home Alone 2 special. So you could go and stay in a suite that was similar to Kevin's suite, and they'd play the movie for you and, like, bring in things that were, like, from the movie. Fun. So Tim Curry, always fantastic.
He's great.
Technically not a bad guy in this one, but he is a bad guy from Kevin's point of view. So I guess he is kind of playing his similar role. A very young Rob Schneider plays the bellhop in a less annoying role than I'm used to seeing him in.
I was going to say that because I'm not a fan of it. His
me either.
I find annoying, but he's fine in this.
He's fine in this one. I accidentally stumbled into this in our Home Alone review, but you have a very fun cameo from Ali Sheedy, which is obviously, of course, the John Hughes connection from The Breakfast Club. Because as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh my God, that's Ali Sheedy. What's she doing here?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's why. With blonde hair as well, so that's why I didn't recognise her at first.
Yeah. And I actually really like the Bird Lady in this one too. She is supposed to be, like, her design is supposed to be loosely based off the design of the Bird Lady from Mary Poppins, from Tuppence a Bag, the song Tuppence a Bag.
Sense,
yeah. And I think her...
She's quite well known in this country because she's known for being in the soap Casualty, which I don't know if you've heard of. No, it's like a UK soap. It might not have made it, but it's set in a hospital, as you can guess by the title. But she's known for that. I think she's also in that movie, The Commitments, because she's an Irish accent actress, and that's like an Irish sort of set movie about, like, an Irish rock band. But it's, so yeah, she's quite well known in this country. But but I liked her, and I like her little friendship with Kevin, and I think that's really sweet. And I have a lot of fun with this movie. There's a line early in the movie that makes me laugh so much, though, because it just kind of shows, like, that they definitely live in America and experience Christmas in America. When Kevin said something like, "Who wants to spend Christmas in a tropical climate?" I'm like, dude, I'm from Australia. Every Christmas is a tropical climate here, okay? Like, because Christmas in Australia is in the middle of summer, so. Yeah, so when he said that, he's like, who wants to spend Christmas? And I'm like, oh, kid, at least you don't live in Australia. Like, it's so annoying when you live in Australia and everywhere associates Christmas with snow. It's like, no, that just doesn't happen here. I had more nostalgia for this one because I remember seeing it at the cinema with my siblings and my cousins. And it was like, it was a fun little, like, holiday memory for me. And I had a lot of fun really watching this one. What about you? You just watched this one tonight on stream, so you'll have that nice impression in your mind. Did you have fun? I did. One of the fun things about the whole Florida thing is then the dad's still wearing his, like, Florida style shirt, even though it's raining outside. It's like, what are you doing? But he's just in the spirit of things, I guess. And here's the question. They're watching It's a Wonderful Life on TV, which is a callback to the first one because they're watching now. But it's in French. Why is it in French when they're in Florida? I don't know if they maybe forgot that, like, they were filming in Florida, not in Paris this time around, and they just like accidentally bring it out. Because I found that odd too. I was like, why are we watching it in French? That's odd. Yeah, I think maybe that was just a bit of a gaffe that they didn't notice. Yeah, or they just wanted it to be a callback to the first one. Yes, that could be it too. Yeah. It could be that, definitely. Good old Uncle Frank is still being a dick. In this one, he calls Kevin a pervert. Uncle Frank's on pretty good form in this one. gets a little bit of a bigger role in it. So yeah, it's a good sequel. It's a solid sequel. I think I did feel the pacing a bit. Like I did think it felt a bit long. I think it could have been a bit shorter. Overall, I think I prefer the first half of the movie to the second half. Like the second half, I think does drag, and some of the stuff in the second half, it does feel like a bit, and they're going through the motions, and some of it might just be that it's just the same stuff but not as good, because I know you enjoyed The Bird Lady, and they do have some good scenes, but I think I definitely prefer the old guy from the first movie, and it might just be that the story works better with the way he's worked in and the payoff and stuff, and we'll get to the stunts at the end, but I definitely don't like the stunts as much in this one. Like, there's some good stuff. There's some good visuals with it, and I think with this one, it is a really strong sequel overall. Partly because it's that thing of we're redoing the first movie but putting some twists on it, and I think it's meant to be silly, like all these coincidences, because like we were saying last time, I think the first one has this balance where there's a couple of things where you can say, oh, come on, that wouldn't happen, or this. But there's also enough where it does make you believe in it, and where you're not spending the whole movie questioning stuff. I think this one is doing it deliberately. It's almost like they're just hitting the coincidence so hard. Like obviously another example is that woman at the traffic lights. They just happen to bump into the same woman again later on, and they redo the gag, except this time it's Kevin pinching the arse and she thinks it's Mark. It's very cheesy. I think they hit the cheese a bit hard in this one, like, because I know the first one is very, but I think they go a bit too far with the sentiment in this one. Like the turtle doves thing was a bit overplayed.
Oh, really? Oh, I see. I find that so sweet.
But I think definitely you can have fun with some of the plot holes and some of the logic, because one thing I wondered is why is Mr. Duncan, if he owns the whole place, why is he serving people at the counter? Because you sort of have this image of like if he's this really rich sort of millionaire, and but that's the whole thing. He's serving Kevin at the counter, and Kevin doesn't realise that it's the guy who actually owns the place. I'm probably sounding more negative on it than I actually am, but I think that's partly just in comparison with you. Like, I do enjoy it. It's a good sequel. I think it does that sequel thing of we're retreading a lot of the same ground, but we're putting some nice little twists on it, and I think you're right. I think with Kevin, it's nice to see that he's matured a bit from the first movie, and you get to see that a bit more in this movie. You get to see him maybe doing things that are a bit more like he's being a bit more generous in certain scenes than he would have been in the first movie. Up to the movie, I think is very good. Like, I think the way they set the table and everything, like, is very strong, and they take quite a while building to it, because when I was watching it, I'd forgotten how like they actually get separated, or how.
Oh, okay.
I thought, well, are they just going to leave him at home again, and then he just get later on he goes to the airport and how are they going to do this? And then they show it, and it was fun to watch. Buzz being a dick to him again after last year, but again, it's the setup for the movie. I guess it's so they can have their payoff later, but it's like, because I thought like the choir scene was a bit random.
Yeah, that was a bit over the top and a little bit, and again, it was another one of those scenes where like Buzz is doing something to Kevin, and then Kevin tries to retaliate, but I'm like, what is with all of these choir singers? Did none of them have any balance? Because like he pushes Buzz over, and then it just like causes this massive domino effect of like all of these kids just falling over on the stage. It's like, really? Like, did none of you have steady feet? Yes, it was a little extreme. But again, like it sets up the sibling thing. And again, if you do think of this movie as being a partial remake, again, that kind of, you can understand. I think it kind of lessens the repetitiveness, because you understand that, oh, okay, we're actually trying to kind of redo what we did in the first one in a different way, as opposed to just making a straight sequel. It is a sequel / soft remake.
Yeah, and I guess that was a bit different, like, because when you see where that scene goes when they're back at home, because naturally I was thinking, well, this is going to lead to them, like, sort of dumping on Kevin, but first, that doesn't happen. First of all, they're kind of like, well, Buzz, you should apologize, and then this is another. This is another side to sibling rivalry, because, again, this is something which I'm pretty sure does happen, where you make this insincere apology, and then by doing that, you're turning the table, sort of thing.
Yes.
It's only Kevin who can see them, and it's not like sincere and the whole thing. So that was actually quite a clever little twist.
Yeah.
But before we get into details, I guess the only other problem for me with the movie, which we've both said before, is it's not really the same. You're not really Home Alone if you're in New York. And it's not the same. I mean, I do like the New York setting. I think it's a good depiction of New York. I mean, I've been a few times, so it seems like... and I've actually been around Christmas time, so I can't say it's
that sounds cool.
Yeah, like not actually Christmas Day, but over the Christmas period. It is a great place too. And they definitely capture, for someone Kevin's age, what an exciting thing it is. And they do definitely show different sides of New York City. It's not all like the glamour, really. And they definitely show like Chinatown at one point and different. So they definitely show quite a range of like New York, and quite the same as being Home Alone, because a lot of the antics are around the hotel, and I think that is some of the best stuff in the movie, probably. We'll talk about that, but I think that's probably why they got him to the house, like the relative's house. So that he'd
have a base.
There's actually a home.
Home Alone. Well, the working title for this movie was Alone Again, and I actually wonder if maybe that would have worked better, because he's not technically home alone in this one. He's just by himself. I find when I watch this movie, my biggest, again, I talked about this a little bit with the first one, is that I think when you watch these as an adult, your practical mind kicks in, which it doesn't as a kid. So I think my biggest gripe with this movie is I just kept thinking the whole movie, I'm like, how did you let this happen again? How is this kid not on a leash? How like when they get to the airport, like I will admit, the way they separate Kevin in the airport and show him, mistaking another man for his father, I think that worked quite well. Because like it's like when you first watch this movie, it's like, what are they going to do? Are they going to oversleep again? Are they going to leave him home again? So I thought that was interesting. But again, it's like when they get to the gate and the stewardess is like, no, we'll make sure everyone gets on the plane. And the mum's like, no, we have to make, she's like, no, you go. It's like, no. If I was the mother, I would be standing there until I physically saw that kid get on the plane. Like, they even kind of lampshade it in that scene where they go to the cops and he's like, now, has the boy ever been in this position before? And they're like, no. Well, actually, we left him home last year. It's becoming a McAllister tradition. It's
gripe for a different reason than in the first movie. The first movie, it's not a gripe because it's mostly the premise, and they do a good job of explaining it, and you can just about see how it could happen. And from there, obviously not so much the stuff with Kevin and the Crooks, but as we said, like the family's reaction and the mother stuff, that does feel very authentic. But in this movie, I forgive it for a completely different reason. I forgive it because I think they're playing into it just for the sake of we're doing it again. Like they say at one point, we did it again, and I think that's just what they're doing. It's like they're playing into where they go to town on all these different coincidences. That
Yeah.
would never happen, especially since we're now in New York, like this massive city. So
Yeah.
I forgive it for that, because I think the film is purposely doing it just
Fair enough.
like comedy type thing, and
Yeah.
it's no longer going for realism. Whereas I think the first one, because it was contained to like him in the one house and stuff like that, then it was reasonably grounded, some of it.
Recorder that he's got, which apparently was a prop that they made for the movie. I mean, it like kids wanted it so badly that like a toy line actually did develop it. But yeah, just like a.
Yeah, well, because I got a bit of trivia for this movie. I got one thing I got for the toy store scene is that Macaulay Culkin got to keep one of the toys that he gets.
I did hear that. Yeah.
And also, it's Chris Columbus's daughter is in that scene as well.
Yes.
Apparently.
Yes.
Okay. So humor is a bit broader in this one, like because like the stuff in the shower and some of the other scenes, it's a little broader, and most of it I find funny. But there's some scenes where it's like, yeah, you could have toned that down a bit, but. I do like, again, the fact that he's doing this to the uncle in the shower, and then that comes back later because he actually uses the recorder. And I guess that's partly moving with the times a bit, because that those sorts of recorders probably were in at the time. So
I also do like how he uses the recorder to like record his own voice, and then I mean it wouldn't really work, but it's a kid's film, and he slows his voice down on the recorder so that he can sound like an adult to make the booking at the plaza. Like, and I also really like how, and he did this a bit in the first film, you talked about this, how in order to get away with being a kid on his own, when they ask him if he's on his own, he's like, what, are you ridiculous? Of course I'm not on my own, my dad's just at the hotel. Like, he makes it, you know, he talks about how ridiculous the situation would be if he was alone. So yeah. But I do like that they've got the Tim Curry character who's very suspicious of him, you know, watching him and like trying to catch him out and stuff. And I mean, it's Tim Curry. This was one of the earliest things I saw him in, and he always makes any scene just so much better. And he's a lot of fun. That smile, man, it's that sleazy smile he's got where you're like, oh yeah, you're not trustworthy. No.
While I'm thinking of it, you know what's the gem with that? I absolutely love when they cut from the Grinch's face, Kevin, to Tim Curry's face.
Tim Curry's face. It's a brilliant fade. You're right. It was so good. And he's doing the smile, so it just fades perfectly. No, you're right. That's a great moment.
That's genius. Because it's almost like, you could imagine Jim Curry playing the Grinch as well. So it's so perfect.
Absolutely.
By the way, the other main one in the hotel, that actress is out of the Addams Family.
Yes, she is. Yes.
Yeah, she's quite familiar. I think she's in both of the original movies. She's got a bigger role in the first one, I think, but she's in.
I think so.
A little bit. So she's good. She's playing obviously a more villainous character in this, but she's good as well. There's lots of fun around the hotel. Tease that they're going to leave him again, and then he shows up.
And then he pops around, from the front seat. Yeah. Oh, and Frank is in good form again. I love when he's threatening Kevin, and he's all like, your father paid good money for this trip for me, and I'm not going to waste it. And Kevin's like, oh, yeah, well, congratulations, you cheapskate. Like, Uncle Frank's always in good form, isn't he?
Yeah, that's a good line, because he's calling him out on being a cheapskate. So you're definitely with him.
I just love that your father paid good money for me to take this trip line. It's like, oh, Frank, you are so not aware of what's going on. I also always remembered the bit where they're at the airport and they're handing the bag down. Give us to Kevin, give us to Kevin, give us to Kevin. And then Kevin's not here. Kevin's not here. And I just love it. You know, he goes to the mum. It's like, oh, okay, Kevin's not here. Kevin! So again, I thought that reveal was quite fun, and I always remembered that.
That's what I was going to say. That's actually a clever, because they're passing the bag along and pass this to Kevin, and Kevin's not here, and so that's again a smart way to explain it. And once again, as we said, there's so many coincidences, and I think they sort of get away with it, because it's like he bumps into the lady, because you're wondering, well, how's he going to get past that lady if he doesn't have a ticket to New York? Because at that point, you don't realise then he's gone to the wrong gate. So that again is a subversion. That's quite a clever subversion. But then he bumps into her, so that causes all sorts of confusion. And then it's a stretch, but I quite like that it's her supervisor who just says, get him on, but make sure he. And once again, the coincidences are just piling up, because then he sees someone who he thinks is his father, because same coat. And what a coincidence that he's got his headphones on at the point where the lady's like...
Yeah, because... Of course, he's sitting next to the only passenger on the plane who doesn't speak English. Remember, the guy who's sitting next to him starts to speak French. So, yeah, I remember thinking that when he put his earphones on, I was like, oh, and there's another coincidence. He's got his earphones on just at the time that they're saying they're going to New York. Yeah, there is some contrived stuff.
Oh, yeah, there's so much, but I think, they're having fun with it. It's in Seattle, like, like she forgets her bag and goes back.
Yes, at the exact time that Jonah's up there with his dad. And I hear you. I think it works with this film for a few reasons. One, again, it's a kid's film. So if you're thinking about your target audience, a kid's not going to be sitting there thinking, oh, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Second, again, like some of the things like, it being the same lady from before that hits Harry and Marv again, you could maybe put it down to like, well, Christmas is in the air. Maybe there's a little bit of Christmas spirit helping Kevin out, helping him get out of situations. And then, like you said, because they're kind of playing on what was in the first film, but kind of amping it up a bit, it works because of that. Like, I think you can let them it go because of all these reasons and just still kind of enjoy this one, because I think that there's a lot of like stuff that they do really well in this one. I think, like you said, the New York setting, I'm assuming that like in America, New York is one of the cities you want to be in around Christmas, because whenever they show it in Christmas in movies, it's always, it's always lit up. You always have the big Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center and all the lights and everything. So I think the setting is really good. They really picked the right city, and really utilized on that. Like you said, the hotel scenes are really fun. Again, it's fun to see what a kid would do if he's in a hotel by himself, ordering massive amounts of room service, but it's all like candy and ice cream and like chocolate pie and, dessert and stuff like that. And we've got another movie that was filmed again for this movie so that he can, use the dialogue from the movie.
Love that they bring that movie back, but it's like, it's meant to be probably like the in-universe sequel to the movie or something.
Yes, it is. It's a sequel. This one's called Angels with Really Filthy Faces or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And as I said, again, it's similar stuff because it's like the stuff he does in the shower. Again, he's using some sort of a model and And there's just some fun comedy with that and like misunderstanding. Kate gives them like a scolding later on.
I absolutely love the lines like, what kind of idiots do you have working in this hotel? Only the finest in New York City.
Yeah, that's very good.
I always thought that one was really good.
And I quite like when she slaps Tim Curry where
because he doesn't even have much of a reaction. She just slaps him and slaps him and he's like, oh, yep, I deserve that. You can just tell that he's like, yep, okay, that's fair. So yeah, I do. And like, which is like, how could you let him check in? It's like, well, the boy had a very convincing story. It's just like, really? I actually think for me with this movie, the part that didn't work, or at least I least enjoyed, which is actually a bit of a pity because this is kind of the main part of the first movie, is I think you mentioned not really liking the second half. I found the third act quite hard to get to, which is the part where he decides to foil Harry and Marv's plan and lure them to this abandoned house. Now, again, we get some information. We find out that the dad has a brother who lives in New York, and they talk about how the brother's out of town and there's construction going on in the house. Again, another coincidence that just leaves Kevin with a nice empty, house that's in a state of disarray that he can rig up.
Yeah.
But so I think that, because obviously he finds out that they're going to rob the toy store and decides to lure them to the place at the end. But you spoke about the pranks in this one not being as fun as the first one, and I agree with that. They're not. I think not only is it I think this is the one part of the movie that to me did feel repetitive, because this part felt like it was a copy and paste from the first movie, whereas everything else felt like they were kind of doing the first movie but with a bit of a twist. He's alone but he's in the city. Instead of being at home, he's in a hotel, whereas this was like, okay, it's Harry and Marv at the abandoned house, or at the house, and he's playing tricks on them. And it's like, yeah, I found that part I started to get a little bit, to tune out a bit. And man, his pranks in this one, like we talked about in the first one, you can kind of suspend your disbelief and be like, okay, maybe they just get hurt. But there's stuff he does in this one where it's like, oh, no. These two would actually be dead.
Yeah, because you've got bricks coming from a great height.
Poor Marv, two to the face.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, and I think this is the difference, is because it's the sequel, they wanted to up the ante and try and outdo the tricks. But I think on two levels. First of all, because there's probably less slapstick in this from the actors, because you're going a bit more extreme.
Yes.
I think that ruins it a little bit. But also the other thing is, I actually just think the setup and the traps themselves was more clever in the first film, like the way he worked, and probably the fact that he was in his house, and
his own house,
he had to use his own what was there, makes it a bit more interesting and industrious what he was doing. Like, there's definitely moments here. I do enjoy the visual of the paint on Marv and like him looking a bit like a clown almost. Like,
the electrocution scene, again, he would have died, but it's also another kind of funny visual.
It's just them up and I quite like the nail gun as well in the nads. That's pretty good.
That one is actually kind of funny. But
so there are good ones, but no,
not as good. Not as good. They feel a lot more malicious in this one. They feel a lot more like Kevin is actually trying to punish them as opposed to just keep them out of his house. And I mean, I'm not saying they don't deserve it, because I mean, they see the kid and their first thought is murder. So, like he is defending himself. And of course you have that kind of, again, where we talked about in the first one, how his conversation with Marley helped him go on and, face the robbers. In this one, the bird lady, she talks about giving back to the community and doing good and doing a good deed to make up for anything that you've done that is bad. And so that's why Kevin decides to go and stop the store robbery, because, the store owner was talking about how all the money goes to charity and, it goes to like good things. So Kevin is trying to like even the karmic scales, but he's going a little extreme, Well, it's a little extreme.
I'm going to say it now. It might be the most cheesy line of the movie. I meant to open the podcast with it. You can mess with a lot of things, but you can't mess with kids on Christmas. Something like that, isn't
True,
it?
Though.
That is such a cheesy line, but I guess that's his sort of Rambo style line for the movie.
Yeah. And again, like with the first movie, the bird lady kind of comes to his rescue the same way that Marley kind of came to his rescue in the first one. She helps Kevin escape from them by unloading her birds.
Well, since you're up on your trivia, I take it then they actually threw birdseed on them.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's
brilliant. That's so good.
Yeah, just to feel authentic.
I will say the reunion between Kevin and his mum in this one actually gets me a little bit more than the first one.
Oh, really?
I think it's because of the New York setting and the fact that he's in front of the tree and he's literally saying, please send me my mum, send me my mum. And then he just hears her say Kevin and he's like, whoa, that was quick. Good work. And so for me, I really like that reunion. And again, I think because I saw this one first, so for me, this one didn't necessarily feel like a sequel, because it was actually, because I saw it before I saw the first one. So I think I just have that soft spot for it because I really remember seeing all these moments in the cinema and watching this with my family and really enjoying it.
Macaulay Culkin got paid $4.5 million for this.
I know, right? Little shit.
There's an inappropriate joke about how that's a lot of cocaine money for him.
Oh, poor Macaulay Culkin. He's another one that Hollywood just chewed up and spat back out. Poor kid.
That's insane.
Can't move out of the child star mold, which I think Culkin really couldn't because his characters were so, I know this is going to sound weird because obviously he's a child, but if you know what I mean, his characters were so based around being a kid, you have child actors that do roles, but like they're just any role in any movies, whereas Culkin's roles are like, it's very much, he's a kid home alone. He's an evil kid in this one. He's a kid who died too young in this one. It's always very much about him being a child. So I think it was hard for him to move past that.
Yeah, well, I've not seen the movie, but I know there's this movie. Is it called The Good Son?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, him being an evil kid. Yeah. That's actually a very cheesy movie, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's him and Elijah Wood, isn't it? I'll check it out. I mean, it did sound really bad, and it sounds like they made the mistake of they just got the casting wrong, because when you see him in Home Alone, you're not going to buy him.
It's hard to buy him as a bad kid, especially because he's basically playing the kid like he's Kevin McAllister. So it's basically just like if Kevin McAllister was just really sadistic, but that could be a fun one that we could do around like a Halloween special or something. It
would be interesting to give it a watch. But fair play, he's obviously recovered from his problems, so he is still around, so that's something at least. And My Girl, another really strong reason.
My Girl,
I love My Girl.
Me too. That was my first. Okay, for anyone who hasn't seen My Girl, we're about to talk about big spoilers because we're going off on a tangent, but that was my first experience with like a really tragic movie.
I saw it deals with that sort of thing.
Yeah, when I was about 7 or 8. It's just, it's so like misleading, that movie. You watch it and you're like, oh yeah, here's a fun little coming of age story, a bit darkly funny about a little girl who's just, living her best life in the 70s. Everything's fun and games, and then boom, someone steps on a beehive and the last 20 minutes are just pure pain.
That really cheesy, crappy song, the uncle singing in the shower. It's so I don't know if it's a made-up song or if it's, but it's so crappy, but also really cheesy and catchy.
His dance moves are really good too. He's on the ball.
Yeah. But it sort of says something. Even he's being nice to Kevin at the end of the movie.
Yeah, so I saw you say that on stream. I jumped onto your stream right at the end.
That says something. Then even he's being quite nice.
Yeah, and I think that Buzz at the end of this movie again is like, he's really quite good, and the way he like throws the present to Kevin is all like, Kevin gets first pick, everything's, So that's again, good. You have that magic of Christmas, making the family all happy again. And then of course we end with the dad being all like, $967 on room service. It's like, yeah, buddy, you lost your kid in New York City. Maybe we don't talk about the room service bill.
And my comment was, that's what you get for being so rich.
Exactly. The fact that the kid can spend $967.
If you weren't a rich yuppie, that would.
He'd just be at some motel in Hoboken.
Oldest daughter from the last one, she's not in this, is she?
I didn't notice. I'll have to go back and have a look.
Well, because obviously she would be 2 years older, and I didn't really see anyone who would be that old.
I'll have to have a closer look. I'm honestly not sure, but maybe. You know what? That actually might make sense though, because like if she's older, she might have gone off to college or something like that. Yeah. So
although it's the holidays, but true. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I'll have a look next time I rewatch it. I'll keep an eye out.
The bandits are introduced when they're in the fish trunk.
The fish van, yeah.
And when he's saying, you smell that, it's the smell of like opportunities. Like, no, it's the smell of fish. And they start arguing about it. That's really
They're pretty sure it's just fish.
Yeah. That's so good.
Look, they're on good form again. Like, I might not like the third act with the traps and everything, but Harry and Marv, always good value. Joe Pesci, again, fantastic. And of course poor Marv getting all of the brunt of the traps.
You're gonna rate it.
All right, so a little of this is probably a bit of nostalgia in the fact that I saw it first, but for me, this is as good as the first one. So I'm going to go with 8 again. Like I said, the third act definitely does bring it down a little bit, but I think that the Christmas feel in this one is even bigger, if possible. Like I said, Kevin is a more likable character. I love the scenes in the plaza. Tim Curry elevates anything he's in. It doesn't matter what it is. If you've got Tim Curry in it, it's going to be elevated. And even though I did have the problem of how did you let this happen again, I still had a lot of fun with this movie. So like I said, if I was being honest, it's not as good as the first one. It isn't, because the first one is so magical and so well written, so well about it so good. But because I saw this one first, because I've seen this one more than the first one, and because I have that nostalgia and those memories, for me, it is on par with the first one because of all those factors. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, as with the first. What about you?
So it doesn't lose a point because of Trump. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Maybe that.
Yeah, that's maybe. Maybe I'll knock it down to 7.5 for that.
It's a good sequel. It's a solid sequel. It does a lot of the things than a sequel should do, and it's still a lot of fun. There's some fun gags in it. It's again nice to see Kevin with some character development, and there's definitely stuff where they're putting little twists on the first movie that I do enjoy. But then there's other stuff where I think they're doing stuff that's a twist on the first movie that isn't as good, and I did feel the pacing more than you. Like the second half, I think isn't as good overall. As I said, a little bit too cheesy at times, but overall, it's a strong sequel and definitely one I would always watch. So 7.5 for me. Know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. You can support me for as little as $1 a month on patreon.com/borednow. If you want to help the channel monetarily, you can also make a one-off donation at PayPal. There's a PayPal link on the channel if you want to make a one-off donation as well. And mad fools as we are, we're doing all 6 Home Alone movies over the holiday season. So we will continue with this trend and do all 6 movies, and see what we think of the other sequels, because neither of us has seen any of them. So next time, Home Alone 3, which was the last one to get a cinema release. After that, it's all straight to video/DVD, or like straight to streaming in the case of the Disney Plus one from a couple of years ago. But next movie, it's a different kid, so that'll be interesting to see what we think of Kevin's replacement. And also a young Scarlett Johansson's in the next one. So,
oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Early role for her. Home Alone 3 we'll be back with soon, and it'll be a first time watch for both of us. But let us know what you think of this sequel in the comments. Rachel, if you want to plug your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies, mostly from the 90s and noughties. My Tumblr and Twitter are also linked in my YouTube, and Keith will usually leave a link in the description, so come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, thanks guys. Keep watching Christmas movies as long as they're good ones and the standard of Home Alone, and have a great holiday season. And just in case this is the last holiday or the last video of us you see before Christmas, there's only one way to end it, which is Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. See ya.
Of all the familiar sounds of Christmas, surely this one is the most beloved. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
My family's in Florida and I'm in New York.
Funnily enough, we never lose our luggage.
Once again, the family that loves staying together.
Can I help you? Reservation for McAllister?
Couldn't be further apart.
He's in New York.
New York? This is a vacation.
Only 2 things could ruin this vacation. And they just hit town.
Hiya, pal.
Yes! Stop that child! Beckon! Where'd he go?
I'm up here. Come and get me.
You gotta do better than this, kid!
Don't you know a kid always wins against 2 idiots?
Oops.
Did you guys give up? Have you had enough pain?
Never!
What kind of idiots do you have working here?
The finest in New York.
Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
You wearing aftershave?
That's kerosene.
Now, why would anybody soak a rope in kerosene?
Merry Christmas.